Hello. Today we'll be talking about trigonometry. More specifically, the unit circle, as well as angles and how they correlate to each other. So, the first thing you might be wondering is what's the unit circle? Well, I'm not going to tell you that now. I'm going to first tell you the definition of angles. What are angles? Well, an angle is the space between two lines that intersect at one point. You might already know this, but this definition is important. Now, the unit circle is a circle in which the radius is 1. Those two things might not seem to have very strong correlation at first, but they will soon. Now, if you place an angle into the unit circle, you can find a point P. See, the two lines that need to intersect at a point to become an angle are both in here, despite the fact that you can see only one line besides the x and y axis. This is because the positive x-axis is what I will consider as the first line that forms the angle. The second line that forms the angle is the line here. Now that line's intersection with the circumference is where point P is located. So first of all, point P has coordinates, the x and y coordinates. Now to measure them, you simply have to measure the displacement in between the point P and the y-axis to find out its x coordinate, and the displacement between the point P and the x-axis to find out its y coordinate. This is because the x-axis is considered as a long horizontal point 0 for a y value, because x's y value is equal to 0. And the y-axis is similar, which means to measure what the y value is, you have to measure where it will hit the x value, where y is 0, and same for y and x and y. Now, there's different types of angles that can be formed on the unit circle. Let's start off with a 0-degree angle. So, a 0-degree angle, you might be wondering how would that work? Well, it would just be one straight line over the positive x-axis. That's it. And a 180-degree angle, well, that'd be a horizontal line over the negative x-axis. And now, any acute or obtuse angles. You've heard those terms before for sure, and you probably know the definition. An acute angle being one below 90 degrees, and an obtuse angle being one above 90 degrees. This is quite easy to understand. However, obtuse angles are not above 180 degrees. If an angle is over 180 degrees, it is not obtuse. There is no general term for it, in fact, because normally you wouldn't use those types of angles or measure those types of angles in everyday life. Now, a 360-degree angle looks the exact same as a 0-degree angle, because by all numerical factors it is the same. Same with a 720-degree angle. But now, how do we measure an angle? Well, the angle is the distance, is the space between the positive x-axis and the second line in a counterclockwise direction, in an anti-clockwise direction. Negative angles are the same, except that they are space between the positive x-axis from a clockwise direction and not a counterclockwise direction. Next, we'll be talking about cosine and sine. So these are two functions that are very distinct and unique from other functions in math, and we'll learn the definition now. The precise definition of it is the x-coordinate of point P being cosine and the y-coordinate of point P being sine. This is quite simple. Now, there's also some variations that can go on to cosine and sine. In the second quadrant, all cosine values will be negative, and all sine values will remain positive. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the x-coordinate of point P, which point P being correlated to the angle theta, as is shown here, it's in fact not just cosine, but cosine theta and sine theta. Now, for cosine theta to be negative, the theta value will have to be in the second quadrant. It'll be between 90 and 180 degrees. Or in the third quadrant, between 180 and 270 degrees. For sine, it'll be in the third quadrant, 180 and 270 degrees. Well, between those two values, as well as the fourth quadrant, between 270 degrees and 360 degrees. The range of cosine and sine is between 1 and -1, even though the theta value can be up to infinity. This is because the unit circle's radius is only 1. So the greatest value that cosine and sine can have is 1, and the lowest value cosine and sine can have is -1. Such as the 0-degree angle, whose cosine value is 1. This is because the 0-degree angle is essentially the x-axis, the positive x-axis. And the positive x-axis, due to being in the unit circle, has a value of 1. This goes for an 180-degree angle as well, which is -1. And would obviously, both these angles would have a sine value of 0. Whereas the 90-degree and 270-degree angles would have a sine value of 1 and -1 respectively, due to the fact that a 90-degree angle or a 270-degree angle is in fact the positive and negative y-axis respectively. Thank you.